What's going on, everybody? I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Trying to see who's jumping into chat right now. Yeah, you're. Oh, is Alyssa watching over there too? Olivia, I see that you're in chat. Let me know if you're still having troubles with the stream because I tried. Oh, I didn't realize my camera's off. Let me know if you're having any issues with the stream. I switched up a bunch of stuff on my end. Javon was having trouble, and he said that it worked for him. I'm hoping it worked for you as well. Turn the camera on so you guys can all see me. There we go. All right, so today is going to be more of a information lesson. There's going to be a lot of vocabulary going on in this one. I don't know if Olivia's having trouble. I'm gonna try messaging. Olivia. Oh, you know what? I'll do it this way. Oh, it said she's gone. Dang. Oh well. Figured I'd try. Yeah, today's just going to be more of an information stream. What we're going to be doing. Okay, awesome. All right, I just wanted to make sure, Olivia. Cool. So there's going to be a lot of vocabulary that's going on today. There's going to be very, very little work. Oh, okay, that works. Yeah, there's not going to be a ton of work today. It's going to be very, very brief. You guys would have done a little bit of this. I don't know if you guys did this in geometry last year. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. If not, I'm at least going to do the refresher with you guys. So, I'm going to start off with some vocabulary. I'm just kind of talking a little bit more just because I see there's a few more people jumping into the chat every couple of seconds. So I want to make sure nobody's really missing out on anything big. I don't know. I think they're getting stuck watching ads right now. But anyways, as you guys can see, everything is color-coded up top. What you guys see in this box are all going to be vocabulary words that I'm going to be using within the next few days. I'm going to start off with asking you guys, and I know there's going to be a little delay when I ask this question, but when you guys look at this graph that I created up here, or this grid, I labeled all the quadrants. So before I start going into any of the words, this is something I got to make sure you guys remember from geometry last year. Are you guys okay with your 4 quadrants? So you have all 4 of these quadrants going all the way around. It always goes in the counterclockwise rotation. So we're going off to the left all the way through. Sierra, there is a homework if you feel like you can get a jump start on it, but the homework's not going to be due until Wednesday. So first thing, I just have to make sure that you guys know a normal rotation when you guys are graphing angles is always going to be in the counterclockwise rotation. So that's why I highlighted our numbers, making sure you guys know where quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4 are. There's going to be a lot of that within the upcoming days. The first vocabulary word I'm going to start off with is the initial ray, because the initial ray, based on the word that is there, is the ray where the angle begins. So when you guys are graphing on your grid, this is Unit 11, Lesson 1, Javon. We are starting always on the positive side of the x-axis when we go to graph. And I'm going to do a couple sample problems below to show you guys, but I want to practice the vocabulary first. So you're going to start off at that initial ray, and a positive rotation is always going in the counterclockwise. So as you guys can see, I have my little blue arrow that's starting to rotate around, and it will always take you to what we call the terminal ray. Now, a terminal ray is just like, it means terminates. It means it ends. So, and I even wrote it right in here, terminates. So you always start with the initial, go to the terminating end of the ray. Positive rotation is, like I said, it goes in the counterclockwise, and a negative rotation will go in the clockwise direction. Coterminals and reference angles I'm not going to talk about today. That's going to be focused more with tomorrow when we start going into those type of graphs. And that's really going to be the second page of this. So what I'm going to do is, actually there's one other thing I have to label on this graph before I start, or on this grid before I start graphing the stuff below. Because this portion off to the right here, so this part over here is known as our initial ray. When we're talking about angles, that means the positive x side is known as 0 degrees. So again, this is most likely a refresher from geometry last year. If not, then obviously you'll know now. So that's 0 degrees. And if you start going up to the y-axis, you guys should notice that it creates an angle here. And that little angle that's being created between the x-axis and the y-axis is a 90-degree angle. And you guys were taught last year, anytime you rotated from one quadrant to the quadrant next to it, it was a 90-degree rotation. So every time you move from one line to the next, you're always going to be going 90 degrees. So we went from 0 to 90, and now when I go over to the next line, I'm going to go another 90 degrees. So if I go another 90 degrees, I'm going to be sitting at 180 degrees because I'm just adding another 90 degree on there. And then eventually we're going to get down to the bottom, which is going to be 270 if you add on another 180. And now if you do a full spin, a full circle, I hope you guys know a full circle is 360 degrees. So if we get all the way back to the beginning, not only is it going to be 0 degrees, but it's also going to be 360 degrees. And we can continue this process on forever and ever and ever. So then I could add another 90 degrees, and I can go up top and I can say, hey, if I add another 90, it looks like I'm going to be at 450, or 450. And then I could add on another 90, and I'm going to be at 540, and I could just keep doing that forever and ever and ever. Okay? So that was the long, boring talking part. Now I'm going to do some actual examples so you guys can get an idea of why I'm showing this to you. So I'm going to come down to exercise 1A. I'm just going to simply put, let's graph 145 degrees. So you don't have to write this part down every time. I'm just doing it because it's notes. I got 0 degrees, I got 90 degrees, I got 180 degrees, and I got 270 degrees. And then eventually, once again, it's going to come back to 360. The first thing that we want to do is just figure out what quadrant 145 degrees is going to fall into. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, 145, that's in between 90 and 180. So I know this is going to have to be in quadrant 2. So again, today, a lot of you guys are going to feel pretty good with this because all I'm going to do is graph the line. So I have to start on the x-axis because this is always going to be our initial. So that's our initial ray. My rotation, where this is going to terminate, has to be in the second quadrant, and we're just going to kind of estimate where 145 is. 145 is kind of like the halfway point between 90 and 180. So I'm just going to put in a line somewhere over here. We're going to say it terminates there. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to label the angle. When I go to label this angle, since we know it's 145 degrees, I'm going to start from the initial ray. I'm going to draw a little rotation with that arrow there to show that that angle is 145. So every time we do these, we're always going to go in the positive direction. Even when we get down to some of the negative numbers below, I'm still going to show you guys how we're going to put it into the positive direction. Okay. So same thing's going to happen in the next one. I got to shrink here. Actually, I'm just going to move this over here. So if it helps, I would always suggest labeling all of them. It's going to come to a point where you guys are going to have all of these memorized and you'll never have to label these out. But I'm just doing it for now. So I have all my angles. I know I'm going from 0 all the way to 360. This time we're looking at 320 degrees. So if you look at your 4 quadrants, it looks like 320 is going to fall between 270 and 360 this time. So just like we did before, I have to draw in my initial ray because we always start on the positive x-axis side. And we're going to end somewhere in between 270 and 360. So we know we're going to be over here in the 4th quadrant this time. So I'm just going to draw a line down here. Again, we're just estimating. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just drawing in my termination. Now again, make sure when you guys are drawing in your rotation, you're showing that you're going in the positive direction. So I am starting up here on the x-axis, and I'm rotating all the way around into the 4th quadrant, and then I'm putting down 320 degrees. Okay, so I'll stop there for a second. How do you guys feel with that? I don't think Miss Randolph went too crazy into graphing with the degrees like we're doing now, because last year you guys did more rotations, dilations, reflections. You guys focused more on that when you were doing these on a grid. We're going more into actually solving for angles, which you did a little bit with solving with angles. You just didn't do as much as what we're going to do this year because it's more algebra. So what I'm going to do, part C and part E are pretty much just like A and B. So if we were doing this in a normal class, I would say, all right, try C, try E on your own, and then I'll go over it with you guys. I'm going to skip over them for right now. All I'm going to say is, this is all I'm going to do. This is how easy I'm going to make it. 72 degrees, that's in between 0 and 90, so this is going to be the 1st quadrant. So that's all I'm going to write down. It's going to be quadrant 1. I'm not going to graph it right now. And then if you jump down to, oh, I forgot about D. But whatever, I'm going to come back to D. E is the same thing. If I go down to part E, that's 250 degrees. Well, 250 degrees is going to fall between quadrant 3, 180 degrees and 270, which is quadrant 3. So I'm just going to put down the 3 next to it. Where these get a little bit weirder are when you start working with negative degrees and when you start working with degrees that are bigger than 360. So I'm going to show you guys how you can fix it so you can always graph it correctly. So when we do these graphs, we always want our graphs to fall between 0 and 360. That's our goal. We always want it to be between 0 and 360, because if it doesn't fall between them, then we're going to have to start labeling around our graphs a lot more, which you can do, but it's just going to be extra work. So if you guys look at this theta, which is equal to negative 210 degrees. Now, we didn't talk about it as much up top, but I'm going to go up top real quick, and I just want to point out a negative rotation. So if you're doing a negative rotation, that's when the initial ray is rotated in the clockwise direction. So we're just going in the opposite. I always like going in the positive rotation. I hate doing negatives because it gets a little too confusing when you're trying to work backwards. So I always want to work forwards with you guys. So we're always going to try to stick to it and make it positive. So if we look at letter D, you guys have negative 210 degrees. That does not fall between 0 and 360. It has to be between 0 and 360 to be a circle. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this positive. Circles always do 360 degrees. No matter how many times you spin around, it's always 360. So what I'm going to do is, in order to make this positive, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 360 degrees to it. Because if I add 360 degrees, it's going to tell me what's left over, and it's going to tell me what quadrant it falls in. So what we're doing is we're making it positive. Well, if we add these together right now, negative 210 plus 360 is going to be 150 degrees. Because we made it positive, we now know what quadrant that's going to be. So I'm going to show you guys in the picture if you're confused on why I'm adding 360 here. You may have done a little bit of this. I'm telling you guys, I don't know how much Miss Randolph still shows you guys with this stuff, because you're not heavily tested with these in geometry anymore. So what I'm going to do is, just like we did before, I'm going to start at my initial ray. Since we're going to 150 degrees, 150 degrees is going to fall in quadrant 2 this time. So I'm just putting down my quadrant 2. So I'm going to draw my terminating ray over here in quadrant 2. And I'm just going to show that this rotation was 150 degrees. Okay. Now, here's the thing. It said that the rotation was negative 210 degrees, right? So if we go in the opposite direction, so now we're going to go clockwise. We're going to follow a clock, and we're going to go down this time. If I go around this way, that should be 210 degrees. In order for us to check to make sure that our work was right, what you guys could do is just add these two numbers together. So if I have 210 and I have 150, that should add up to give you a full circle of 360 degrees. What we're doing, though, is we're just making it positive, so then we don't have to worry about, I forgot to put in the negative here, so then we don't have to worry about working with negative numbers. Because negative numbers, I'm telling you, they're not fun when we have to do these. Tabitha, since this question was asking us for negative 210, we really wanted to have the negative 210 labeled. So yes, I would suggest anytime you're working with the negatives, label both. You don't necessarily have to have the positive version because it didn't ask for positive 150, but I'm trying to show you guys that both these angles will bring you to the same spot. And we'll talk more about that word tomorrow, but these two angles, 150 degrees and negative 210, they're known as coterminal angles because they share the same endpoint, or the end ray. Since both those arrows went to the same line, this one went to the green line over here, this red one went to the green line right here, they are called coterminal. And we'll talk more about it tomorrow. So I'm going to do one more with the negative, and then I'm going to show you guys one other one, and then I'm done for today. So I'm going to jump down to part F. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do H because H is the harder one. So yeah, let me go to H. And then I'm going to go backwards and do G to show you guys that H and G are the same types of problems. No, you don't have to write it down. You don't have to write down the quadrants. That's just me showing it for the notes. I believe a lot of you guys are just going to know which quadrant it's in based on what you've done in the past. So, as far as this next one goes, we got negative 400 degrees. So like I said before, we want to make this positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. And anytime you want to make it positive, you're just going to add on 360 degrees. Well, if I add on 360 degrees, you guys are going to notice that this one is still going to be negative, and it's going to be negative 40 degrees. If this ever happens, it just means that you're going to have to add 360 on again. So you're just going to keep adding 360 degrees because we have to keep spinning circles until it becomes positive. So if I add on another 360 degrees, oop, I got to shift mine over. I didn't realize I ran out of room. If I add on another 360 degrees, it's going to take me to 320. So 320 degrees, if I were to graph this out, I'm starting at my initial ray. 320 degrees is going to end in the fourth quadrant. So I'm going to put down a line in the fourth quadrant. And it's showing that we rotated 320 degrees. Now this is the part that's going to get weird, okay? So I'm going to probably lose a couple of you based on the picture I'm about to draw. Maybe some of you guys are going to be fine. Now, this said that we had to go negative 400 degrees. Now, if you look at the inside right here, and I'll do it in blue. If I do this inside right here, that is not going to be negative 400 degrees. What that actually is the negative 40 degrees. And you can check that because negative 40 and 320 add up to give you 360 degrees. They'll add up to give you 360, so that's okay. But they wanted us to graph negative 400. So I'm going to show you guys how this works. So when you do negative 400 degrees, what they're telling us that they wanted us to do is go in the negative direction, and we're actually doing a full rotation of 360 degrees. And then we went down 40 more. So I'm going to redraw this so it's less confusing. So what we actually did is like a spiral. So we went all the way around. There's 360, and then we kept going. That would represent negative 400 degrees. So I know my circle is not pretty. I guess I could have used my iPad to make a perfect circle, but whatever. So I went all the way around 360, and then I went 40 more. Okay? So those are the ones that are probably most confusing when you go to draw them out. But if you do the math correctly like we did below, you'll be okay. So now I'm just going to do part G, and then I'm done today. Let me shift this back over a little bit. So in part G, we're going to have something very, very similar, except now we have positive 460 degrees. Remember what I said up top. When we go to graph this, we need it to be between 0 and 360. Well, this time it's too big. Before it was too small because we had negatives. If it's too big, we're not going to add 360 on. What we're actually going to do is subtract 360 off. We're just going to go in the opposite direction. So if I have 460 degrees, instead of adding 360, because that will make it too big, I'm going to subtract 360. And if we do that, we're going to be left with 120. And now that I'm at 120, that's easier to graph now, because now we know that's going to be in the second quadrant. So I'm just going to go boop and boop. I know it's going to be over in that quadrant too. And now I'm just going to label it. So now I have my 120. Now here's the thing. We're not going to go in the negative direction here. 100, not 160. Oh. What did I do? Why did I say 120? I don't know what I'm thinking. So I'll fix we could still leave it there. I'll fix the graph. Thank you, Tabitha, for catching that. So 100 degrees is going to probably be right around there because it's closer to 90 degrees. Sorry about that, guys. So now 460 minus 360 is 100. That will take us there. So now if we're going to do 460, what we have to do is positive, so we have to make sure we're going in the positive direction. So what I'm doing is I'm going a full 360 degrees all the way around. That's one full circle. But according to what we just said, we're going that extra 100 degrees. So we're actually creating a spiral that's going all the way around to get there. And that will represent your 460. Now, everything we're drawing right now, again, it's for the lesson. It's to help you guys out for what we're going to go into tomorrow. Because once I start going into those 2 new vocabulary words that were inside the box up top, it will make more sense. Because what we're going to be trying to find is known as a coterminal angle, which is what I talked about in the previous problem. And then we're also going to do something called a reference angle. The reference angle thing is going to bring back some memories from geometry because we did some stuff with right triangles, or you guys did some right triangle stuff last year with trig, and that's what this unit's all going to be about. It's going into sine, cosines, and tangents. Okay, so that's what we'll talk about tomorrow. Actually, number 2 is going to be kind of like what we did today, so that'll be a good review. And then exercise number 3 will go into coterminal, and then exercise number 4 will go into reference angles. And that's all I have for you guys tomorrow. If you want to get a jump start on the homework, you guys, I won't stop you. You very well can. Pretty much all of question number 1 is just graphing them on the grids. So all I'm asking you guys to do here is graph your X and Y axis for all of these and just show me the picture. Just draw it out. So if you want to get a jump start on the homework, you can do that. You cannot do number 2 because you guys don't know the reference angle yet. So you got to wait till tomorrow for that one. And you can't do number 3 because you need to know more with coterminal angles to make sure you're good. Okay? So Sierra, you're good then? Cool. All right. So I don't know if you guys have any other questions for me. That's the lesson in a nutshell. I'm glad I got notability. Now I'm reading. I'm glad I got the Twitch working for you guys again. Hopefully it will stay. Were you guys actually able to change the quality still? Oh, yeah. So, Javon, the quality still, we were chosen today to have the 480 and 360 again. So, did the quality of the stream look okay, or was it too blurry for anybody? Because I'm going to probably keep the stream running around 540 just in case if anybody has slow internet at home, so you can still watch it live if you want to. But yeah, I'd rather check to make sure. I can try bumping it up next time. It looks fine. I mean, most of you guys are watching it on your phone, so when you watch it on your phone, it's shrunk down anyways. It doesn't have an issue. Like, I'm watching it on my second monitor right here, and it's a little bit distorted. It's a little bit blurry, but I can still read it. But I don't know. But yeah, so I will be around if you guys have questions. Again, you don't have to go too crazy with this homework tonight. I would worry more about it tomorrow and Wednesday. If you guys have not turned in the other homework assignments, I graded most. I think I'm on 8th period right now. I might have missed a couple people from 6, but if you're turning in assignments late, I'll get to them. I'll turn them in for you guys. Make sure that we're good. But yeah, get them to me when you can. There's only 3 assignments in the book so far. By the end of this week, there will be 5 assignments. Okay? So I hope you guys have an awesome evening, and I will see you all tomorrow. Adios.